The news hit like a ton of bricks. Donald Trump, a president many saw as openly hostile to their cause, had won a second term. For pro-Palestinian activists within the Democratic Party, the feeling was less about defeat and more about a punch to the gut. How could this happen? Hadn't they warned the party about alienating Arab American and Muslim voters? The answer, they argued, was a resounding yes. The signs were there all along. Activists, frustrated by the Biden administration's unwavering support for Israel, especially during the latest Gaza conflict, had been sounding the alarm for months. Groups like the Uncommitted National Movement had directly engaged with Democratic leaders, pleading with them to reconsider their stance. They argued that ignoring the Palestinian plight would come at a cost, particularly in key swing states with sizable Arab American populations like Michigan. The warnings, sadly, went largely ignored. The Democratic establishment, comfortable in its traditional pro-Israel stance, seemed to underestimate the depth of feeling within the Arab American community. The images coming out of Gaza, the bombed-out buildings, the fleeing families, resonated deeply. Many saw it as a continuation of policies they felt the Democrats were complicit in. Early election analysis told a sobering story. In several key precincts, support for Biden amongst Arab American voters had noticeably dipped compared to previous elections. While not the only factor, the Gaza conflict and the perception that Democrats were indifferent to Palestinian suffering clearly played a role. The Uncommitted National Movement, along with other activist groups, pointed to this as evidence that their concerns were not just valid, but carried real electoral consequences.
The situation exposed a growing chasm within the Democratic Party, a disconnect between the leadership and the increasingly diverse grassroots.
You cannot claim to champion social justice while turning a blind eye to the Palestinian struggle.
Veteran activists like James Zogby and rising stars like Lexis Ziden had been vocal in their criticism, accusing the party of taking Arab American votes for granted. Their message was clear. The frustration was palpable. Activists felt ignored, their concerns brushed aside by a party more interested in appeasing pro-Israel donors than listening to its own base. This disconnect, they argued, wasn't just about foreign policy, it was about the soul of the Democratic Party. Could they truly claim to be the party of the people while alienating a community yearning to be heard? Section 4. A convention divided, Palestinian voices silenced. The tensions reached boiling point at the Democratic National Convention. In a move that shocked many, the party decided against allowing a Palestinian-American speaker a platform. The optics were terrible. Here was a party, supposedly committed to diversity and inclusion, silencing the very voices it claimed to represent. The decision sparked outrage and further solidified the belief that the Democratic Party was out of touch with its base. It felt like a slap in the face to those who had poured their hearts and souls into getting Democrats elected. The message was clear. Palestinian voices didn't matter. Their stories were inconvenient. Their pain was invisible. Section 5. The road ahead, pro-Palestinian activism at a crossroads. So where does this leave pro-Palestinian activism within the Democratic Party? At a crossroads for sure. The challenges are significant: a deeply entrenched pro-Israel lobby, a party establishment resistant to change, and a media landscape often dismissive of Palestinian narratives. But there is also a glimmer of hope. The growing ranks of progressive Democrats, many of whom are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, offer a potential avenue for change. The energy and passion of young activists, unwilling to stay silent, cannot be ignored. The road ahead will be long and arduous, but one thing is certain: the struggle for Palestinian liberation within the Democratic Party is far from over.